Some true crime stories are terrifying because of the monsters behind them. Others are terrifying because of the failures surrounding them, and the feeling that maybe this entire tragedy could have been prevented. Today's story begins with two separate murders in the same city of Peekskill, New York. The first case involved a 15-year-old girl who walked into the woods one afternoon to work on a school assignment and never came home. The second involved a beloved teacher and mother of three who was murdered inside her own apartment just a few years later. At first glance, the two cases seemed completely unrelated. Different victims, different circumstances, different years. But more than a decade later, investigators would uncover a connection between them so disturbing, it would leave an entire Westchester community asking the same haunting question. If the first murder had been solved correctly, would the second victim still be alive today? What's up, guys? Welcome to Crime Snob Podcast, where every Monday we dive into some of the most twisted local true crime stories. My name is Angela Correa.
And I'm Alice.
And if you haven't already listened to last week's episode, you may want to go back and start there first. Because in that episode, we take a deep dive into Angela Correa's case and the wrongful conviction of Jeffrey Deskovic, who was falsely charged with Angela's rape and murder. And that brings us to this week's episode. The story of the man who was actually responsible for not only the murder of Angela Correa, but for the murder of Patricia Morrison as well. So let's get into it. It was the afternoon of November 15th, 1989, in Peekskill, New York, when 15-year-old Angela Correa walked out of Peekskill High School just after classes ended at around 2:45 p.m. Before her name became tied to one of the most controversial wrongful conviction cases in New York history, Angela Correa was just a 15-year-old girl trying to build a life in a new country. According to a newspaper article, she was a sophomore at Peekskill High School who had immigrated from Colombia only 2 years earlier to reunite with her mother and stepfather in New York.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so she was living in Colombia with her grandmother.
Okay.
And I guess her parents came here to kind of provide a stable, home for her. And then they ended up sending her over to live with her parents.
Wow.
So
sad.
Friends and family described her as an avid photographer with a quiet creativity about her, and she had recently taken a photography course at school. The weather had started turning colder by then. The wooded area behind Hillcrest Elementary School was covered in dead leaves from late autumn, and daylight faded earlier that time of the year. And on that specific day, Angela had plans for that afternoon. According to reporting from the case, she had a photography assignment and planned to spend the afternoon taking nature pictures near Griffin's Pond. After briefly stopping home, Angela changed clothes, grabbed her camera equipment and cassette player, and headed back out towards the woods. At roughly the same time, another person was entering those same trails. According to later court records and newspaper reporting, a man had gone there that afternoon to get high in an area locals referred to as the Pit. Years later, investigators would learn that somewhere inside those woods, Angela encountered him. According to later statements made to investigators, the two spoke for nearly 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
He would later claim Angela told him that she was 21 years old.
How old is he?
He was 29 at the time.
Okay.
And sometime between approximately 3:30 and 4:30 p.m., something inside those woods turned violent. 2 days later, searchers discovered Angela Correa's body hidden beneath leaves in the woods behind Hillcrest Elementary School. Investigators determined that she had been raped, severely beaten, and strangled.
Wow.
The attack had been brutal. Angela's skull had been fractured from blunt force trauma, and almost immediately, fear spread throughout Peekskill.
Do we know what the murder weapon was?
I think just strangulation.
Oh, okay.
And
we don't know what she was hitting the head with?
No, I don't know. He probably just beat her, honestly.
Okay. Wow,
that's what it seems like.
Terrible.
So this wasn't just a murder. This was the kind of crime that changes a town.
Yeah.
The kind of crime that makes parents afraid to let their children walk home alone. The kind of crime that creates panic, pressure, desperation for answers, And as pressure from the public continued to build, investigators in Peekskill became increasingly determined to close the case, even if key pieces of evidence didn't add up.
It's awful.
Even if the DNA didn't match, and even if it meant the wrong man was sent to prison while the real killer remained free. At the time, another student at Peekskill High School named Jeffrey Deskovic became deeply emotional over Angela's death. According to reports, Jeffrey openly cried at her funeral and frequently talked about the case afterwards. Instead of seeing a traumatized teenager struggling to process something horrific, investigators began to see suspicion. Over time, police attention toward Jeffrey intensified. And eventually, after repeated interrogations, the teenager gave a confession to the murder. But there was a huge problem. DNA evidence recovered from Angela's body excluded him completely. And still, in 1990, Jeffrey Deskovic was convicted of Angela Correa's rape and murder and sentenced to 15 years to life in prison.
It's awful.
And while a teenager sat behind bars insisting he was innocent, the person actually responsible for Angela's murder remained free. And nearly 4 years later, another tragedy would devastate Peekskill. But this time, the victim was not a teenager walking through the woods after school. She was a beloved teacher, mother, daughter, sister, and friend named Patricia Morrison. And unlike Angela's case, Patricia's murder happened inside the place where she should have been the safest, her own home. By the spring of 1993, Patricia Morrison's life seemed to be moving toward a brand new chapter. Friends described Patricia as intelligent, warm, compassionate, and deeply committed to helping other people. She worked as a special education teacher at the Manhattan Children's Psychiatric Center on Ward's Island, where students and coworkers remembered her as patient, encouraging, and kind. And just days before her death, something incredible had happened. According to newspaper reporting from the time, Patricia had recently learned that she'd been accepted into a doctoral program in urban education at Columbia's University's Teacher College. But not only had she gotten in, she had received a full scholarship.
No, that's so sad.
I know.
Ugh.
The day before she died, Patricia reportedly called her mother excitedly to share the news. A mother of 3, finally seeing years of hard work paying off. And honestly, knowing what happens makes that detail almost unbearable. Patricia was raising 3 young boys, 10-year-old twins, Raheem and Rashid, and her 4-year-old son, Christopher.
Wow, and she got a full scholarship to Columbia.
What a Wonder
as
Woman,
a mother
right?
of 3
I
with
know.
twins.
With twins.
Wow.
Her life revolved around her boys. And according to reporting surrounding the case, Patricia's family already had concerns about a man connected to their lives through one of Patricia's sisters. So this was her sister's boyfriend.
This guy?
This guy.
Oh.
According to later newspaper reports and court records, the man struggled with severe drug addiction. And according to reports from Networked Knowledge on April 22nd, 1993, tensions had allegedly been building over Patricia refusing to give this man money for drugs and refusing to allow him to sell her VCR for drug money.
Which, reasonable?
Yeah, absolutely. Those tensions eventually exploded, and inside Patricia Morrison's apartment, an argument began.
Oh my God.
According to reports surrounding the investigation, the confrontation escalated violently. And sometime during that argument, Patricia Morrison was strangled to death inside of her own home. The contrast between Angela and Patricia's murders is chilling. One victim was a teenager alone in the woods after school. The other was a mother inside her apartment. Different lives, different circumstances, but connected by something nobody yet realized. And then came the moment that would haunt Patricia's family forever. According to reporting from the case, one of Patricia's 10-year-old twin sons discovered his mother's body inside the apartment.
Oh no.
That detail is absolutely heartbreaking because Patricia wasn't just another victim in the headlines. She was somebody's mother. She was somebody's daughter, a teacher. At her funeral, more than 300 people gathered to honor her life.
Wow.
Former students wrote letters describing her as, quote, the best teacher we ever had. And as people mourned Patricia Morrison in Peekskill, nobody yet understood the horrifying connection between her murder and Angela Correa's. That realization would not become fully clear until more than a decade later. For years, Angela Correa's murder remained officially solved, quote unquote. Jeffrey Deskovic remained in prison, insisting he was innocent. And eventually, the Innocence Project took interest in his case. By 2006, advancements in DNA technology allowed investigators to re-examine biological evidence collected from Angela's body back in 1989. This time, the DNA profile was entered into CODIS, and finally, investigators got a match. The DNA belonged to the same peak-scale man already serving a sentence of 20 years to life for murdering Patricia Morrison in 1993, and according to newspaper reporting from the time, a man who would be eligible for parole around 2013, and in some reportings I saw 2014. A man named Stephen Cunningham. By the time investigators identified Cunningham through DNA evidence, he had already served about 13 years of his 20 to life sentence. When confronted by investigators, Cunningham confessed to Angela Correa's murder and stated that if he was charged in the case, he would plead guilty to spare Angela's family and Jeffrey another trial.
So nice.
Yeah, right?
Thanks.
Stephen Cunningham claimed that although he was shocked when investigators finally showed up at his door, part of him had been waiting for that moment for years. Deep down, he said he never truly believed he had gotten away with Angela Correa's murder, saying, quote, "In my heart, I never knew I was in the clear. I always felt like eventually somebody was going to come talk to me." For years, he carried the secret alone, telling no one. And according to Cunningham, he claims he didn't even know how to begin putting something that horrific into words.
You just say it.
Cunningham also admitted that, as selfish as it might sound, there was a part of him that felt relieved once the truth finally came out. After carrying the secret for years, he said the weight of it had never fully left him. And for the first time in decades, the hiding was finally over. He said he thought about it almost every night, apparently.
Yeah,
so
that's why we don't hold deep, dark secrets that ruin other people's lives.
I know.
Because he knew that this kid was...
So he claims that he didn't know anyone was charged in the murder.
Please. He thought about it every night. He never looked it up.
Well, that's what people say. They're like, you lived in the area. This made headlines everywhere. How did you not know?
I will give benefit of the doubt because it was a different time and I think it was easier to ignore news back then.
Right.
But, like, if you were thinking about it every night,
right,
you never looked it up,
right,
I don't believe that.
And it just peaks out. It's like everyone was talking about it. Everyone knew about the case. Nothing got back to you that it was solved, quote unquote.
No way, yeah.
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
According to newspaper reporting, he admitted he encountered Angela while high in the woods near Griffin's Pond on the afternoon of November 15th, 1989. He said the two spoke for roughly 20 minutes before the encounter turned violent. Years later, speaking from prison, Cunningham described the attack in disturbing terms, telling reporters, quote, "I strangled her. It was during sex, like a rage." And just like that, after 16 years, the truth finally came out. But then came the realization that made this case even more devastating. Because by the time Cunningham was identified as Angela's killer, Patricia Morrison was already dead. If Peekskill investigators had identified the correct suspect in 1989, there is a very real possibility Cunningham would have been incarcerated years before Patricia's murder even happened. Meaning, Patricia Morrison might still be alive. And that possibility haunted Patricia's family. According to reporting at the time, Patricia's mother heartbreakingly acknowledged that reality, saying, quote, "Yes, it means maybe she'd still be with us." Stephen Cunningham would later receive an additional 20-year sentence from prosecutor Patricia Murphy for Angela Correa's murder.
Wow, thank God.
During impact statements, Stephen allegedly refused to look anywhere but straight ahead. Angela's mother, Angela Vasquez, wrote, quote, "Because of his own inadequacy and failure at life, a man who amounts to nothing took the life of a daughter who meant everything to me." Once the DNA results came back, Jeffrey Deskovic's conviction was vacated and he was present at Stephen's court hearing at the time of sentencing.
Wow.
After Stephen's sentencing, Jeffrey and Angela's mother shared an emotional and tearful encounter. Their first encounter since the days after the killing.
Oh my God, that's right, because they were like, they went to school together.
And Angela's mother thought that
Of course.
he was the killer for all those years.
Sad.
Outside the Westchester County Courthouse in White Plains, Jeffrey said, quote, "She told me she felt very badly for me. She remarked that I was very strong. It was a very emotional moment for both of us, just like I was a son to her."
Oh.
After spending 16 years in prison for a murder he did not commit, Jeffrey finally walked free. But freedom after losing half your life is complicated.
Yeah.
You don't just get those years back. Jeffrey lost his teenage years, his 20s, birthdays, family moments,
Yeah.
freedom.
And his 30s.
And according to reports, even after Cunningham confessed, Jeffrey said he felt no closure, because no confession could undo what had already been taken from him. Because by then, the damage had already spread across multiple lives.
Yeah.
Angela Correa's, Patricia Morrison's, Jeffrey Deskovic's,
Yeah.
and their family. There's a
100%.
ripple effect that goes on from this.
Yeah, those children that are forever traumatized.
And Jeffrey's story is really interesting because he lost touch with a lot of family after this. A lot of people thought he was a murderer and a rapist.
Yeah.
And a lot of family ties were damaged. I think at one point it says he was almost homeless, because it's like, okay, you're free, but now what? You have no friends, no family, or very little family, maybe, very little friends.
Yeah, you have no money.
You have no money. And
also you have no idea how the world works.
yeah, it's 16 years later. There's a lot of differences in the world, so now you're trying to become adjusted to outside life again. So it's not as simple as you're free and then that's it. It's
You
a
just
welcome
go
home
back
party.
to your parents' house and
right, exactly. You're rebuilding. And he was incarcerated at such a young age. I mean, and good for him. He ended up getting his degree and he really made something out of his life, but that's not an easy thing to do. I give him a lot of credit. That is the case of Stephen Cunningham and the murders of Angela Correa, Patricia Morrison, and the wrongful conviction of Jeffrey Deskovic.